region. Tonight, we're live on the ground. Plus, here, there's fun places to visit this festive season will not include some historical forts. Tonight, we're learning closure of these sites is indefinite. Well, now those are the big stories. You want to stay with us here over the next 60 minutes or so. Right now, let's bring you Ghana Brief.
Tension is mounting among members of the Civil and Local Government Staff Association, CLOGSAG, over government's failure to implement a new salary structure for its members. At a news conference in Accra, CLOGSAG leadership expressed deep frustration over what they described as government's lack of commitment.
Do we need to disturb the current industrial atmosphere of civil service to be heard? We implore the government to negotiate in good faith in order to forestall any impending industrial action by the staff of the civil service and the local government service. We will not relent in our effort to get to our destination. It looks like there is only one message governments understand. CLOGSAG is prepared to take that line of action.
The Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, has raised concerns over rampant power theft in Galamsey-prone areas of the Ashanti region, identifying Obuasi, Manso and Dunkwa as the major hotspots. According to the Ashanti South Regional General Manager of ECG, Engineer Jonathan Ijabing, the situation is putting significant strain on the company. He noted that despite the challenges, ECG will intensify its enforcement efforts and impose surcharges on offenders.
The money is not coming, and it's not coming because they are not paying. So we plead with them, wherever you are, within the operational area of Ashanti South, make sure that whatever amount that you are owing, you pay. Customers don't come out to pay willingly, and sometimes they attack our staff when they go around. I believe they do that because they don't understand our activity. So we plan to engage them, have education, customer education with them, for them to understand why they should pay electricity bill, because if you don't pay, we will not be able to have money or revenue to pay our IPPs.
From Monday, December 22, over 1.5 million Ghanaians from more than 150,000 households who are beneficiaries of the LEAP program will receive their grant for the 99th cycle. Each eligible beneficiary will receive 320 Ghana cedis. Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection, Agnes Namomolate, was addressing the media in Accra.
Households with one eligible member will receive 320 Ghana cedis. Households with two eligible members will receive 380 Ghana cedis. Households with three eligible members will receive 440 Ghana cedis. And households with four or more eligible members will receive 530 Ghana cedis.
The Bank of Ghana has commended the Finance Ministry for overseeing the passage of an amendment bill for the central bank, indicating it will ensure the country no longer faces financial crisis. Ghana's Parliament on Thursday, December 18, approved amendments to the Bank of Ghana Act imposing stricter limits on central bank financing of the government to safeguard its independence. Three London Beach committees in Sekondi Takoradi, who dishonored an invitation by the National Premix Field Secretariat (NPFS) to render accounts to their communities for the period 2017 to 2024, risk being penalized. The administrator for the Secretariat, Ebo Mensah, who was speaking at the first of accountability series at the Sekondi London Beach in the Western region, said it was untenable that LBCs failed to render accounts for 53% of proceeds of fuel sold during the period.
Every London Beach committee that receives premix and sell premix is going to be held accountable, and they are going to be accountable to the community, because after selling premix, the 53% that is supposed to go for community development is not for individuals.
And a brief there for you. Remember, you can be a part of the program as you watch us on TV3 and listen to us on 392.7 FM. We're also streaming live on Facebook.com, YouTube.com, 3news.com. And if you'd like to send in your comment, use the hashtag Ghana Tonight. Now let's get into some big business for the night. It's loss of action in Parliament as the House goes full tilt for a break. Tonight, Parliament is busy with a lot of work and very little time, passing appropriations of over 300 million cedis for government business next year, officially changing the names of some universities in the country, considering the new lithium bill and a raft of other activities as the House takes a break for the holidays. Our Christian Yali, our parliamentary affairs correspondent, is here with me in the studio. Christian, we're hearing really that now things have concluded in the chamber. Obviously, that's why you're here. But things have concluded. Talk to us about how things played out in the chamber today.
All right, Kamini. So, as a matter of fact, the House started today looking at the appropriation bill. Now, that is what gives government the financial muscle to spend in 2026. So what it means is that per the appropriation bill which has been passed, an amount of 357 billion cedis would be taken from the consolidated fund to be spent over the 2026 fiscal year. But talking about that, we know that the minority, as always, would have their own concerns, talking about some of the allocation, especially when you look at compensation, for instance, which was one issue that was keenly contested by the minority side. But the finance minister, as always, Dr. Keselat-Forson, indicated that when you look at the records and you look at all that this government has been doing from the beginning of 2025 with the first budget, they have been able to, over the period, consolidate their gains and, as a matter of fact, have started looking at servicing the country's debt over the period. But talking about the appropriation bill, Kems, we know that since the beginning of this third meeting, which started somewhere October 21st, Parliament had a total of 35 sittings over the period, some 9-week period. And in that, as of yesterday, December 18, we've had the Ghana Scholarships Authority Bill, which has been passed. And that bill, in essence, is one that establishes the Ghana Scholarships Authority. What it is seeking to do, basically, is to ensure that the scholarship or the award of government scholarship is weaned off political favoritism, nepotism, and what have you. We have had the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology Kumasi Bill as well passed. This bill is basically also looking at restructuring the governance of the school. One key concern, Kemini, has been that KNUST, as the name goes, is a university of science and technology, But over the period, this school has been admitting more students into the humanities and the social sciences. And so, as a matter of fact, the minister stated that if that trend continues, then it means that over the period, the core mandate of the school is going to be lost. But they are trying to, because when you look at all contemporary institutions across the globe, they are more or less working to combine all the disciplines, what you call multidisciplines. And so it wouldn't be fair to say that you are barring KNUST from doing social sciences or humanities. But there again, you have the Petroleum Revenue Management Amendment number 2 bill that also passed. You have the Value Added Tax bill passed, which, you know, when you look into the details, exactly. And then more of them, you have the COVID-19, which is actually a big one, Kemini, because this is the repeal bill. So, as was promised by the government in the run-up to elections, and even when you look at the media budget review and even the 2026 budget itself, the finance minister announced that they are going to repeal or abolish the COVID-19 levy, which has been a conversation, a major one indeed over the period. And so that has been abolished, as told earlier. We have the Virtual Asset Service Providers Bill, the National Health Insurance Scheme Amendment Bill also passed, and then the Ghana Education Trust Fund Bill also passed as well. And then another big one is the Road Traffic Amendment Bill, which legalizes Okada, tricycles, quadricycles, and the rest of them. Now the conversation has been about how we are able to differentiate between those that would be registered, and DVLA is going to play a key role in the implementation of this, as well as the National Road Safety Authority, to ensure that those that would come under the regime, as it were, are given special identities. They will have certain number plates, the helmets that they wear, and then special unions that they should be a part of. In fact, when you look at this law, as would be assented to by the president, it talks about not carrying a baby at your back when you're on a tricycle, a lot of them, and also effectively talking about the age limit for those who are allowed to drive commercial vehicles and to some extent the motorcycles to 21 from 25. So that is also there. Now another big one which has been a talk of time has been the Bank of Ghana Amendment Bill, which was passed yesterday. Indeed, this one, when you look at the initial proposals, one key concern was taking out politicians from serving on the board of BOG, which was one that the minority raised a key concern against, that when you do that, then Kemini, you are going to strip Parliament of its oversight responsibility over the Bank of Ghana, which is a key concern. Now, the other one was about extending the tenure of members who serve on the governing board from 4 years to 5 years. That has been passed. And then you have the Ghana Sports Fund Bill, which was also passed yesterday, which basically establishes an avenue for, sports funding. Now, one concern has been alcoholic advertisement during sporting activities and whether that should be revised so that now they talk about the Champions League, talk about La Liga and those other foreign international competitions that have lead alcoholic beverages being the lead sponsors and whatnot. But that one has been passed as well. And also part of it is that 10% of all proceeds from advertising companies for sporting activities would be channeled into this fund as well. And all other beverages that are not even alcoholic. And then today we've had the,
that sounds good. I want us to get into today now, but before then, let's take a listen to the acting environment minister, Emmanuel Amakofibua. Let's look at that and then we'll come back to the conversation.
Today I'm proud to say that I have brought an elaborate regulation that gives us a sliding scale agreement. What is the advantage in that? The advantage is that it allows the state to capture the benefit in good times, like in the gold sector. And I have to tell you, we've done it across the mineral sector. In the gold sector, for example, when the price, for example, in the lithium agreement was negotiated, at that time, lithium was $3,000. They achieved $3,000. They achieved 10%. But today, with the sliding scale I've brought, even when we get to 2,500, we achieve 10%. When we get to 3,000 because of the sliding scale, 3,000 plus, we'll go to 12%. In fact, if you do the calculation, At that point, it means that 3,000 government is saving almost over $500 million. And so this sliding scale, but let me also say that this sliding scale also gives the companies consideration when prices tumble in difficult times. Then the adjustment will automatically also favor a lower royalties. What is important for investors? It gives them certainty. Certainty. They are very sure that in Ghana, when the price tumble, we will not be in trouble because the government automatically will reduce royalties. When the prices go up, the government will also take advantage and capture the benefit.
Well, we've just heard from Emmanuel Amakofibwa, and I believe, Christian, that he's talking about the new lithium agreement.
Exactly, certainly. And, you know, this has been a back and forth issue. The government laid a new one, a revised one, which pegged the royalty regime at 5%. Now, that raised concerns, especially from the angle of the civil society organizations, that was woefully inadequate, and that would be a raw deal against the country. Now, when you look at it, then the issue about what the law says settles in. What does the Constitution say concerning our mineral royalties? Now, there has been changes and amendment over the period. We used to have a law that pegged it at 5%, and there is a revised one that pegs it at 10%. But some still say that, and especially when you listen to the likes of Imani Africa, they will tell you that, see, Kemni, when you look at the current regime of lithium and the pricing on the market, when you peg it at a constant 10%, you have a problem because revenue could shoot up. That means that you're not going to get the corresponding benefit. And so adopt a sliding scale. In fact, somewhere last week, the Committee on Lands and Natural Resources had a stakeholder engagement that had a former speaker, Professor Michael Aaron Okwe, on it, who made some of those proposals. Today, he has presented a new one that has the sliding scale. And so the royalty regime can adjust from 5% to 12% or even beyond, based on the pricing on the market or how the market volatility is. Now, the minority has an issue still that instead of choosing a sliding scale, why not go for a constant? They believe that, and even the case that Kwekwam Prechum Sapon makes is that even when the lithium prices on the market collapse, Barari DV Ghana was willing to do business with the country with a 10% royalty rate. So why do you come here today and say that you're going for a sliding scale approach?
Let's hear the minority on this subject matter as they responded to the new deal put before Parliament by the acting Environment Minister.
We have been very expectant to see something juicy come out from the LI and the subsequent agreement that will be laid. But in 2023, it was 2,250. Agreed. But at the time that you came, you brought it here, the price has come down to 800. And the lithium company was prepared to do business at 10% royalty. With lithium prices having recovered to around 1,200 per ton, the justification for reducing Ghana's effective benefit to 5% becomes less defensible. One cannot reject a higher negotiated outcome in opposition and later defend a lower outcome in government using the same legal framework. That is not policy coherence, but policy regression. And it is clear that key inputs from stakeholders, traditional authorities, mining communities, and the minority have not been reflected in the final proposal. Parliament has not been provided with the data models, price assumptions, revenue simulations, or adjustment triggers that inform these thresholds. Mining affected communities who bear the social and environmental costs of extraction have not been adequately involved in shaping the framework. Without disclosure of the underlying methodology, Parliament cannot exercise effective oversight.
Well, so that's the debate around the new lithium deal that the government has put across to, or the executive has put across to the legislature. And Christian, this is not the end of it. It's one of those things that it didn't cross the finish line today.
Exactly. Also because the minister even mentions that as part of this, there's going to be 1% out of the gross revenue from the mining that will be given to the communities, the mining communities, to more or less drive development in those areas.
We'll see how this plays out when the holidays are over and Parliament is back. But also on some of the serious work they've been doing, the majority side, aka the government side, has fulfilled one of the promises they made to the Ghanaian people about changing the names of some universities. Take us through that.
Exactly. And the first of them is the C.K. Tedam University of Technology and Applied Sciences. Indeed, Kem, when you look at the mainstay of the argument, government is saying that it wouldn't be prudent to name any public institution after any individual except the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, which they want it maintained as such. And so today, there were about 3 bills that have been laid to rename or change the name of C.K. Tedam University of Technology and Applied Sciences to University of Technology and Applied Sciences, Navrongo. Now, the second of them is the S.D. Dombo University of Business and Integrated Development Studies, which is now named University of Business and Integrated Development Studies, WA. Now, the third of them is the Akentana Menka University of Skills Training and Entrepreneurial Development. This was a satellite campus of UEW in Kumasi. Now, it is University of Skills Training and Entrepreneurial Development, Kumasi. Now, Ken, so when you look at it, in all the 3, you realize that when the names are changed, they add the cities in which they are located as part of the names. And this is part of the legal drafting which have been approved. So you have WA, you have this. And jokingly, some would say that, okay, so if I attended Akentana Menka and I have a certificate that bears this name, and you're asking about my alma mater, which one do I mention?
You have to mention the name of the school.
The name of the school. So which one?
As of the time you are being asked the question.
As of the time.
As of the time you're being asked the question.
Then that, I mean, just on a lighter note, people will say that GTEC will come after you.
No, I believe Professor Jinapo won't do that. But contextually speaking, the NPP administration was the first to change the names.
Exactly.
And then the NDC returns and says, we want the original
In
names.
fact, the majority leader, Mahama Yargam, makes a case that when you look at some of these institutions, they were constructed under the NDC.
Absolutely.
So why do you come into office and change the names? Now, there are more of them as such. Mind you, there is George Pargrand University of Mines and Technology, UMAT. So many have started asking that question. Are we going to see the change of that one as well to UMAT as it used to be? But that is one thing that maybe going forward we'll get to delve into as and when they happen.
Well, I think so.
But the minority is against it again because they will tell you that, see, these are individuals. And you see, one of the cases they make, C.K. Tedam and S.D. Dombo, they'll tell you that these are very iconic individuals from the north. Okay? And you're the majority leader. You come from the north. Why do you supervise a transaction or a business that takes away these names from these universities? And it's like you are not celebrating your heroes.
But also iconic individuals aligned to the opposition party of the day.
Oh, certainly.
So you can understand why the majority leader, and again, I mean, they've not made that as a reason they won't want the names changed, but they feel they did the job and they should be the ones naming it.
And one of the reasons, Kemni, is that when you look at a lot of, again, contemporary universities across the globe, they do not have much of people's names after them. The universities come with definitive names that specify what they deal into or what they go into or what are their
more universal.
So that was one big one. But you know that the day wouldn't end without leadership.
No, we'll talk about that briefly. But I do want us to look at appropriations. We know that the government now has over 300 billion cedis to spend.
57 billion, yes.
357 billion cedis to spend for 2026. Let's look at the engagements around that before it was passed.
Yes, and so you have, and just as I began to mention, you have the minority saying that, see, a lot of the allocations made into compensation are bloated, okay? And the MP for Walewale, Dr. Tia Kabiru, would tell you that, see, when you look at some of the allocations, it's just like government is interested in going to establish committees that will be drinking tea.
That's the minority position.
That's the minority position, you know. And you have the minority leader himself, Alexander Afeoma, make the case that, see, government has not been able to provide enough jobs. Government has not been able to handle 189 MPs in Parliament. So he do not trust the same government to provide jobs for the teeming youth who do not have jobs to do. In fact, he goes on to mention certain individuals' names who should have been given certain key roles or ministerial positions who were not given. But basically making that case. But the finance minister will tell you that, see, Ghana has seen a lot of progress over the period.
Let's take a listen to the minority leader, Alexander Afeoma, in his closing remarks in Parliament today.
We do not gather merely to conclude a meeting or session, but on our part as minority, we are closing to confront the truth. In our view, our country is in danger. Our democracy is under attack from within. Our young people are dying in preventable tragedies. Their futures are being destroyed in failing schools. Millions of them have no work and no hope. Our laws are being twisted. Our institutions are being weakened. Our voice is being ignored. To stay quiet now would be a betrayal of the people we serve. It will be a betrayal of Ghana. So today, we, the minority, take a stand. We draw a line. We choose to speak again and again. History has a way of testing nations. It tests them not in moments of triumph, but in moments of temptation. It tests them not when the path is clear, but when a fog is thick. And it judges them not by their words, but by their choices. Ghana stands at such a crossroad today. Our people are tired of watching our constitution treated as a suggestion, tired of seeing a human life reduced to numbers in press conference, tired of a parliament that sometimes forgets it speaks for the people, not for the executive. From this side of the aisle, we say enough is enough.
I mean, there's a much longer version of this you can watch on our social media handles, including YouTube, because he makes a lot of points. He also touches on his seats.
Exactly.
Seats
yes.
at the ECOWAS Parliament.
Yes, and that has been a very keenly contested issue because then the majority leader raised, you know, this evening my R and L, just by the way. But you see, the majority leader cited him for contempt, referred him to the speaker. Speaker made a ruling and referred him to the Privileges Committee to look into his matter. In fact, I know that over the week and even from last week, that committee has been meeting. And that is a committee chaired by the First Deputy Speaker. And over the period, we've seen that even on the floor, they tend to have some banters. So today, as part of his concluding remarks, the minority leader, Alexander Afeoma, indicated that he is praying that the First Deputy Speaker avoids that temptation to invite him, Afeoma, before the Privileges Committee, because as for that seat, as a third Deputy Speaker of the ECOWAS Parliament, he is going to sit on it until April 2028. And nothing could be done about it or can be done about it. And so we look forward to see how that is going to pan out. Also because there are some substantive issues about he attending an ECOWAS meeting without that right to do so.
And we can now also listen to the majority leader, Mahama Yarga, who also had the last word as far as, you know, the leaders were addressing the chamber is concerned. Let's take a listen now.
I know that due to the very, very excellent performance so far of John Dramani Mahama, Ghanaians are asking him to seek a third term. I know that. I know that because I read on social media, I listen to conversations, and Ghanaians believe that as a result of the good deeds of His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, they don't want him to leave the presidency.
They believe a third term is possible.
And they believe that a third term is possible. And they are demanding for a third term. But John Dramani Mahama has not given any indication that he wants to go for a third term. But I have always said that Ghanaians will be the ultimate deciders of the future of this country.
Mahama Ayariga is majority leader, and that point he makes, I'm sure, is going to generate a lot of debate amongst our viewers now.
Yes, indeed.
But he also spoke about a few other things. Let's wrap it up quickly.
Exactly. So he speaks about, for instance, he touches on a very thorny issue about he being away from his constituency due to personal reasons and in quote-unquote good reasons. Because then over the period, even in the chamber, whenever the minority embarks on some sort of disruptions, they ask him to go to Boko. And he says that over the period, he's maintained his calm and his cool and tried to not be moved by all the provocations coming his way. Because then they are working at dealing with a very delicate issue that one cannot just go about saying things or doing things anyhow. And so, as it were, he touches on the Otumfuo report submitted to the president that all the recommendations are going to be dealt with. And he speaks about the OSP. You would recall that he and the majority chief whip brought a private member's bill to scrap that office. And then we have the president write publicly asking or requesting them to withdraw that. That actually was a good conversation, because some were like, why doesn't he call them behind closed doors and discuss with them instead of writing publicly about it? But he says that they had that feeling that, see, the OSP, like some other law enforcement agencies, had failed, quote unquote, woefully in satisfying the expectations of Ghanaians, and so should have been scrapped. But they will yield to the president.
What a wrap of Parliament. Christian, you've done a great job covering Parliament. We hope to see you next year doing an even better job. Fantastic work.
Certainly.
Fantastic work.
Right on dot.
Christian Yale is our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent. It's a wrap of Parliament until after the holidays. We'll be here to bring you all the action when they return. Right now, however, let's talk about a very worrying development, because at least 5 people have died from bee attacks in the country this month alone. Let's get into the why, the how, and what you can do to protect yourself. It's still Ghana Tonight here on TV3 and on 392.7. I'm Kemini Amano. Let's get into that story now. Now, the latest bee stinging incident happened in the Volta region. 2 pupils of Angloga EP Basic School were killed in the attack. Across the Volta region, 2 other victims of bee attacks have been seen over the week. The 5th case, also earlier this week, was in Pandai. Now, tonight, the Ghana Education Service is sharing new information about the school incident. I want to show you bits and pieces of that statement that was released in the last few hours of the night. They have described the incident as tragic, resulting in injuries and deaths, as I've already told you. But let's look at that real quick, because they say that the management of the Ghana Education Service has received reports of a tragic bee stinging incident that occurred at the Angloga EP Basic School on Wednesday, 17 December 2025. The incident resulted in injuries to some members of the school community. Let's look at the next one, which says the report indicates that a total of 30 persons were affected, including 5 teachers who were stung while attempting to rescue learners, 3 school feeding cooks, and 22 learners, 2 of whom sadly lost their lives. Management extends its deepest condolences and sympathies to the bereaved families, and in that statement from the Ghana Education Service. But what I want us to do now is to go on the ground. Faisal Abdul-Idris, our correspondent who's been covering this story since it started in that part of town, or of the country. Faisal is joining us with a bit more on this. Well, my understanding is Faisal is not ready now, but I promise you we will go on the ground. In the meantime, remember we talked about the why, the how, and what to do when you're in a situation like that. Because, I mean, we don't know if it's in the season of bee attacks. You know what I'm saying? All right, now let's get into that. Dr. Frank Dodu is Chief Superintendent of Police. He's head of Public Health Department at the police hospital here in this country. He's joined us with a bit more on this. Doc, I hope you have answers to our questions. But let's start off. Why are we seeing a lot of bee attacks at this time?
All right, thank you very much, and greetings to you, viewers. And I should think that there are seasonal moments when we have these bees coming out a bit more into our communities. And so, depending on certain seasons, that is with respect to the weather, these bees tend to be out there. The other times, so that it has to do with certain fragrances or perfumes around us. And so, it's a community open wide place, but sometimes there are certain fragrances that tend to attract these bees towards human populations. And so, those are the immediate reasons I can think of for why we are having these bees. That is, if we are to eliminate every other form of
I see, but what are the...
these bees also being in the system.
Very well, Doc, you're going to have to speak up for me a little bit more. But what other reasons could there be to this occurrence?
Yes, so there are the belief system that bees sometimes are used as a medium of weapon for certain communities, for certain tribes. But that I cannot speak to into details. I can only speak to what maybe science, research, and point to. So those are the two immediate ones that I would reference to.
And you won't believe it, I have heard that before. But what could be the medical reason for why some people die from bee stings?
All right. So when a bee stings, it introduces a venom into the human body. And the way the human body reacts to any foreign substance is to produce some form of antibodies or white blood cells to try to conquer these foreign bodies. And the extent to which that response to the foreign body may lead to what we call anaphylaxis. And anaphylaxis can lead to an anaphylactic shock. When we say anaphylactic shock, what will happen is that the response of the body trying to overcome the foreign item, foreign body, that in this case the venom from the bee sting, can be so aggressive such that it tends to mop up all the sources of energy in the bloodstream, because of course an aggressive way of trying to fight any onslaught, any foreign attack can make you consume all your arsenals, can make you consume all your resources, and in this case in the human body that's what will happen. And so when the anaphylaxis or the response is so intense, it will mop up all the body's energy sources, all the body's defense system, and in no time they all get used up, and that is what leads to the high fatality, depending on how many of the stings one suffers from these bees. So mainly it is from anaphylactic shock. But if you want to go into anaphylactic shock, it's in stages. So sometimes you may have an ordinary inflammation, acute inflammation that may not be full-blown form of inflammation. So there can be pain, there can be swelling, there can be redness on the sites. All of these are evidence of inflammation happening. But when these go beyond reasonable limits, then the anaphylaxis may set in, and for that matter, the shock happens. And that is what leads to the death.
I see, Doc. Now, are there some people who are more prone and vulnerable to this severe allergic reaction, or what you call in the medical term anaphylactic shock, than others?
Yes, some people do. So ordinarily, the body system is such that any response to a foreign body is measured, it is moderated, such that it is not excessive. But for some people, for example, people who are prone to suffer or respond aggressively to allergens. They are the ones whose systems are usually also responding aggressively to any foreign objects. So people who tend to have allergy also tend to respond equally badly to any foreign body, and in this case are more prone to anaphylactic shock. Others too are unable to contain certain triggers. Okay, so some of this, if you know yourself to suffer from responding badly to certain triggers like a strong scent or some mist or dust, those ones. So ordinarily, we say people who show symptoms of asthma, they tend to react also quite severely to any of these foreign bodies that enter the body.
I see. Doc, I'm going to hold you on because the big part is what people should do correctly, medically responsible response people should have to be attacked. But we'll come to that briefly. I want to bring in now our regional correspondent, Faisal Abdul-Idrisu, who's been following the cases in the Volta region. Faisal, we know that you've been engaging with the family, the GES, in the last few hours of the night, released a statement elaborating on the incidents that took place. But what's been your engagement so far with this family?
And Michael, I engaged the families of...
Right, go on, I can hear you. Hello, Faisal. I'm going to try again if you can hear us. Let's talk about those engagements that you've had with the family so far since you started following the story.
Kemina, I can hear you. Can I proceed?
Yeah, go on.
Good. So I have been speaking with the families of the victims. Particularly yesterday, I engaged parents of Theodora Amovi, one of the deceased persons, who told me that they are devastated at the loss of their daughter. They recounted their very last moment with her. The mother indicated to us that she particularly was at the polyclinic in Angloga. I mean, she rushed there and held her in her own arms until she took that very final breath. And so they are grieving. They are in a state of shock. But of course, they have no one to blame except to give thanks to the Almighty God and to say that even though they are in bad times, the only thing that comforts them is the words of God. And that's exactly what they are doing at the moment. The statement from the Ghana Education Service is more elaborate because as of yesterday, we knew that there were 21 persons that were affected. But that statement now indicates that there were 30 of them, and that is more elaborate and detailed. This morning, the DCE for Angloga and some officials of the GES were at the school premises.
Right.
To
now, Faisal, we'll get into that briefly, but I want us to take a listen to that mother you spoke to. Then we'll get to how the story has developed since you last reported it. Let's listen to the mother of one of the deceased students.
I had her in my arms when the nurses began treatment on her. She was so restless and demanded that I took her out of the clinic. The nurses attempted to administer IV fluids, but it was not successful. While at it, she demanded for water. I gave her the water, and that was it. She was gone.
It's gone.
I am devastated, but I don't want to overthink it. And so I am comforting myself with the words of God. I got a call and rushed to the hospital. But upon arrival, I was told my daughter had passed. It is painful to send a child to school to become something good in the future, only for her to die in school. She was lively and was our source of joy.
Well, devastating to hear them talk about their deceased children. But Faisal, you were telling us that the statements GES released today is coming on the back of a visit to the school. You were there. Tell us a bit more.
Yes, so I understand the DC and some officials were there in the morning. I was not part of that visit, but when I engaged the assembly member who earlier indicated yesterday that they were going to take steps to destroy the beehive, he confirmed to me that the DCE was there with some GS officials to ascertain for themselves what really happened. Even though school is no longer in session, they wanted to see for themselves where the bees were and all of that. Last night, they had since destroyed the bees in the school. So the statement from the GES indeed comes from the back of the engagement. And in fact, I was told that they were going to visit the families. And so, like I said earlier, the 30 people they are saying indeed should be the correct figure, because as of yesterday, what we knew was 21.
I see. How common is bee attack or the presence of bees even in the area?
Very, very prevalent, particularly in the rural areas. You find bees almost everywhere. Bees do not only live in bushes. In fact, in homes in the region, you find bees in trees, in school compounds, just like the one in Angola, you find bees. A few times I've seen people taking steps to drive them away, destroy their hives and all of that. Particularly in these times between October, November, December, the very hot temperature times, bee attacks are very common. I think 2 years ago, there were similar incidents, except that these 4 deaths recorded in Angola are catching off a bit more of quote unquote alarming, because in the past, even though there were bee attacks we have learned of, the deaths were not these. The numbers we are seeing are a bit alarming.
Very well. We'll leave it here with you. Thank you so much. Faisal Abdul-Idrisu is our Volta region correspondent. Such a tragic incident. Now, he tells us that it's a seasonal affair in that part of the country, which is why the question about what to do when you're attacked by a swarm of bees is really crucial. Dr. Dodu is still here with us. Doc, what do we do?
Right. So, the most first aid response strategies will tell you that as much as possible, you have to remove from the source of the injury or the source of the attack. And in this case as well, because of the fight and flight response when we see these or when we attack, we tend to also immediately and aggressively respond, and that can be very dangerous. So our recommendation is that you should calmly remove from the source of the attack. So yes, you have to urgently do it, but if you can do it almost unseen, almost unnoticed, that could be helpful so that you can remove from there. If you're able to identify that there's something on you that is attracting these bees towards you, for example, any strong scented garments that you are wearing, or if you have any of the perfume on you that you think you can easily also minimize or tone down, you want to quickly do that. So essentially, you want to make sure that you prevent this attack. But yes, once you've been attacked and you are able to remove yourself from this, that.
Oh, very well, Doc. I'm afraid we'll have to end our conversation here, but hopefully we do not encounter bees. But if you do, the doc has just told you what to do and how to remove yourself from what could be a very tragic incident. It's still Ghana Tonight here on TV3 and on 392.7 FM. When we come back from our break, right, I'm going to tell you why your dirty December will not include some forts in the country, historical edifices, so to speak, in the country. Don't go away. Welcome back to Ghana Tonight live on TV3 and on 392.7 FM. I'm Kemeni Amana. Tonight, authorities say they are closing down 5 historical forts to pave way for maintenance works. Here's a quick look at the statement released by the Ghana Museums and Monuments. I'll show you that later. But these are the forts: Asher Fort, James Fort, Fort St. Anthony in Axim, Fort Orange in Sekondi, Fort Apollonia in Bain. Right. So those are the ones that you can visit this dirty December. The question will be why. We are told that is for maintenance and it will be closed until further notice. But let's get an elaborate explanation of this because it's dirty December. Kwesi Blankson is the acting executive director of Ghana Museums and Monuments Board. He's joining me via video call for a quick one on this. Kwesi, we know it's for maintenance. What's the nature of maintenance that will be undertaken on these historical sites?
Yeah, thank you very much. We normally have a maintenance department that works on the forts and castles, and from a critical examination, particularly for, the Asher Fort and James Forts are in very bad state for visitation, and therefore we decided to close them to the general public so that everybody's December will be nicely celebrated.
But you've had at least 10 months to do that. Why is it being done now at this time in December when you could be you could have a lot of visitors?
We have been doing that here. We have been working on them for the past 7 months or even 8 months now. But we thought this is the period we have to announce it so that the rush will not be to these facilities, particularly Asher Fort and James Fort. But the maintenance work have been going on for a long time, since March.
How much longer do you need for this maintenance works? What should the general public expect to be the timeline associated with the maintenance?
Well, as the statement indicated, we are trying to have a complete overhaul of the facilities. If you have been to Asher Fort and James Fort before, you may have noticed that some concrete parts were added by the prisons, and this posed a serious threat to our clients who visit them. So we decided to put them off. But with regards to the rest of them, Orange and Axim, and also the Christiansburg Castle, you can visit them. You can visit them, yes. But we have permanently closed Benin, Apollonia in Benin, Asher Fort in Accra, and James Fort in Accra.
I see. And so these changes that you're making, whenever it ends, what should the general public expect to see?
Well, we expect to see rehabilitated forts with better interpretation services and better facilities for everybody to enjoy.
I see. We look forward to that. Thank you so much, Kwesi, for your time. Kwesi Esel is...
Thank you, too.
Indeed, is director of the Ghana Museums and Monuments Board. We've just been discussing that statement that also came in the last few hours of the night about the closure of 5 of the forts. He's also told you that there are many others, including the Christiansburg Castle. You can still visit those ones. They are open for your dirty December. But these 5, which we've been through already, you cannot go to. I've got to go. I'm out of time. But as we do every Friday night, I have to let you know what you would be seeing at 7 a.m. on Key Points. The guests are lined up. There will be discussions of the big stories, over the week with Alfredo Kanse and his panelists. Solomon Owusu is coming. Dr. Zato is coming. Martin Pebu will be there as well as they discuss a host of issues, including the Attorney General's recent accountability series, Encounter with the Press, We'll also look at the Santa Hena's report on the Boko mediation efforts and a host of other issues. On Sunday, I will be back on your television at 1 p.m. with another edition of Hot Issues. This time, we would look at the new road traffic bill, the changes that are in there. We'll also look at how well we are performing on our roads as I sit down with the Director General of the National Road Safety Authority. Make a date. Remember, it's no longer at 2 p.m. on Sundays. It's at 1 p.m. right after the midday news. Well, that's how we end our program today. Thank you so much for your company. I'm Kemeni Amano, and this is Ghana Tonight. Bye-bye.
Ghana Tonight.